Morena, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Heidi. Thank you for joining us. And we've got Angus, Paulie, we've got Anna that are in the chat already. We've got some others that are coming online now. Good morning. First day of lockdown. What timing for our webinar?
Yeah, kia ora, good morning, everybody. Tēnā koutou, and hello from all of our homes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm welcoming everyone today for today's webinar. So we've got the pleasure of Heidi Renata joining us, Chief Energy Officer of INN0V8HQ. Today we're talking about adaptability and community leadership, which is super timely topics to be talking about, obviously, in the light of the changes that are happening. I love the phrase you said before, Heidi, of what a year this week has been. It's things have changed really quick, and I guess, yeah, the adaptability piece is so important. Morena, Creative HQ, McKinsey, Lingy joining us now. So I guess the format for this, we've got some different questions we're going to go through, some different topics we're going to have a riff on. But for everyone in the community joining now, if you've got any questions, which I'm sure you will, if you put them into the ask a question piece, not the comments on the side. And what's really helpful about that is it means people can upvote your questions, and it can help us target those questions more quickly. The other cool thing is when we start answering those questions, I can hit go, which kind of timestamps it. So someone that comes into the future that may have the same question with value from that piece of information, they can click on that and it takes them straight to that section too. So so if you just ask the questions in that piece there. But without further ado, I guess, yeah, Heidi, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I guess just framing this up, if you kind of share a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Kia ora, and good morning, everyone. And firstly, thanks to Casey and Kiwi Landing Pad for inviting me. Ironic that it happens to be when we scheduled this originally, life was normal. And today, obviously, we've entered into, for Aotearoa New Zealand, the first day of lockdown. So commendations and appreciation for everyone that's going through this at the same time. I guess to give a little bit of context to who I am, I'm the founder and chief energy officer, aka managing director, to be fair, of INN0V8HQ, which is a shared workspace, co-working space down here in Otepoti, Dunedin. My brother and I co-own this. Very grateful for his contribution to investing in this when we first set up about 3.5 years ago. Yeah, when we first set this up, ironically, it was all about connecting humanity. And today we are doing this in quite a unique context and a concept. So now I guess INN0V8HQ has become its virtual business marae, for lack of a better phrase. Yeah, it's, as I said, it's a, if I'd known then what I knew today, it'd be, yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's and definitely on that connection piece, I know from with my time in Dunedin, it was definitely a piece a place I felt very welcome and connected me into a lot of people. So it's an incredible place, an incredible community. And as you say, like connections change so rapidly, and particularly in the last kind of 3 to 4 weeks. I see a lot of pushes between different initiatives of how do we transition life to coming online and connecting as human beings. It's a very different space right now, so it's going to be some good conversations that come later on in this piece. I guess framing things up as well. You're a very passionate person, Heidi. It's one of the things I love about you. What drives you? Where do you feel your purpose really comes from? And for connecting people and facilitating that community connection.
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot, actually. And to be honest, the source of that answer is kind of, it all comes down to, I mean, I'm a socialite by nature. For all the huggers and the intimate people out there going through a time where you're not allowed to do any of that feels incredibly strange and weird. And I think if I was being, honest, and I think most of the, keynotes and presentations and that I've done to date, it's all been around the fact that I have I love that connection. It's intrinsically part of who I am. And it's interesting, actually, and I'm for whoever's joining us on the call this morning, I think there's a lot of laughter around caging me into a confined space for 4 weeks, because as I said, it's like caging a racehorse in a kennel. So this is all very much having to readapt how I am as a being. I guess, thinking about it in a more of a basic context, we've got a very a close whānau. And I grew up in a little town called Milton, just south of Dunedin, and there was always this wonderful community feel. And I think, Steve talked about it in one of our talks not so long ago, that we kind of, with INN0V8HQ, we've kind of reinvented that whole feeling. We've wanted to reinvigorate or reinvent that whole sort of feeling around community, tribe, and whānau. And I think, to be fair, like today's, as of today, or even in the last few months, we're getting a real wake-up call around what that really looks and feels like, and I guess getting back to the essence of what we're really here for. So I think it's, I think in some ways, I actually feel in a time like this, I'm okay in the sense that I know this is going to get better. And again, we talked about an earlier case that so long as everybody contributes and actually adheres to what we've got to go through over the next month, will really determine just how much conscious effort, that everyone's basically putting in into eliminating this virus quickly. But for me, it's around sense of whānau, whanaungetanga, whakawhanaungetanga, that ability to make, to feel like you belong somewhere. So, and also that you can help lead change. I guess I've always been square peg round hole. I'd never fit into the traditional social scope. And I think when I was little, I used to probably think that was probably a bit belligerent, or I was kind of a bit defiant. But really, what it was is always sort of looking for better ways of doing stuff. If I didn't necessarily agree with ways of doing stuff, I'd always sort of want to create another solution. So for me, when we're thrown into challenges like this, there's a thrill for me in finding an alternative way of doing stuff. So I think even if it feels a bit nervy and a bit sort of weird right now, I think with time we're going to find out a lot about ourselves. I'm going to find out even more about me. And I guess the other part is how we're valuing our time. Because I think for human beings, we live in a rat race. And for business owners and for founders, and especially for startups, this is, it's not a sprint, it is a marathon. And it's how we, I guess, articulate and moderate our time as well to keep going.
Such an interesting piece around the time, isn't it? Because so often in different work environments, it can feel like the 9 to 5 is the way. I've got 2 people I live with, one at KPMG and one at Xero, and that's quite often the workload that they have is so heavy that they never get through everything. And I guess it's the same for any startup as well. And the time becomes the proxy of figuring out whether they've been productive or not. But now we're moving into, like, with remote working, one of the interesting pieces about that is that it's actually a lot more about output, not necessarily the hours that you're doing. And it's very much accelerating what, I guess, on the adaptability piece of what work looks like and what the future of work will look like. Everyone's had to kind of pull forward remote working if that's feasible within their business. And I guess this is also where something like this is so important. Is it's really interesting hearing how people are adapting that into their businesses, because what you might be doing might be different to the next person, and you can kind of like share and kind of better your way of doing it through that community piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that there's a comfort in probably knowing, and I don't know if that's the appropriate way, but it's the only thing I can sort of associate with. There's a comfort in knowing that we're all unaffected by this. As that we're, like, it is everybody is affected by this.
Yeah.
So I think there's a comfort in knowing that through this time of change. Yep. And I think it's actually interesting when we think about, how we're sort of operating now. I'll just go back to the fact is now we have to spend time with ourselves and actually find out our deeper meaning. And I think I've said it before, and I'll say it for the rest of my life is, I guess when you're going to do something, like setting up a business, or you're doing anything, any project or any relationships, does it align with your values? And is it something that you love? And I think this is probably during this lockdown period where we've got to get familiar with ourselves, and we're probably going to find out a lot about ourselves that have been dormant or we didn't realise existed. And I think that's really exciting. And I mean, even just watching how we're behaving already, you know, and for some of us, I mean, I've been in self-isolation for about the last, I guess, week or so as well. So I was sort of leading up to this as we're sort of going through the change, and again having to bring them, close down the office as we know it. But you know, the thing I guess that I'm seeing now, which is, you know, I guess if we think about innovation, everybody, whether they like it or not, is having to be innovative around how they're now leading their lives and how they're going to adapt to living in a confined environment for this period of time. And the hope is, fingers and toes and arms and legs and knees crossed, that we will only, you know, have to do this, you know, for 4 weeks. I know that's ambitious and optimistic, but the hope is if we bloody get on top of this, we can move quickly through, you know, I guess recovery for who we are as a community. But I think what we're going to start, you know, my gut feeling is that we're going to start seeing some really cool ways in which we never knew, we were unconscious of, and how we communicate with each other and how we're building relationships. So I think, you know, for us now, building relationships is going to be adapted significantly for forever. How we're running our businesses, you know, I think for cafes and, you know, the hospitality network, I commend you on, like, overnight, you know, life changed. And for those that could, they adapted quickly and moved into takeaways and deliveries. And so, you know, it's just really interesting watching people adapt now and using, I guess, this platform a bit more. So massive appreciation to the telecommunications networks as well, because they're going to be hammered right now with sustaining the level of traffic that we're seeing come through.
Absolutely huge spike on that side of things. And I guess in adapting things and I guess we're coming back to the connecting with people, something a friend of mine's been doing that I really resonated with was every day he calls 2 people that he might not have talked to for a couple of weeks or whatnot, and just checks in on them. Not necessarily any particular people, but just checking in. And from there, encouraging them to do the same. And then that kind of has this ripple effect, right? Where they call 2 people and it kind of multiplies and multiplies. And I guess the really important piece of that, of as we kind of all come into isolation and lockdown for 4 weeks, is it can be really lonely and challenging within your mental well-being to be stuck at home in the house. A heck of a lot of working at home, working remotely, when I was mainly focusing at that point for a year on kind of travel and working with my marketing. And within that, honestly, sometimes where I'd be at home for 3, 4, 5 days or a week, 2 weeks, that was some of the hardest times I actually had last year. Was it can become a slippery slope where you can actually kind of, your energy kind of goes down and your kind of outlook on life slowly starts to kind of decrease in a way that it's almost, it happens gradually over time. So one day to the next day doesn't feel super different, but then all of a sudden you get out and you hang out with friends or family or colleagues or whatnot, and all of a sudden you feel your energy pick up again. And you're like, whoa, I didn't know it was actually had gone down so much. And I think that's going to be one of the challenges that we have in these next 4 weeks, is being kind of like hyper aware of that. And I guess this is kind of the community leadership piece, is like all of us as leaders in our community have to be able to kind of like look out for one another and keep that connection. And I really like how there's the shift of words, how it went from social distancing to physical distancing, right? Because we're not actually wanting to socially disconnect from people. We want to be as connected as we possibly can be.
It's about those social relationships, and I guess it's just morphed at the moment. All we're doing is morphing our social interaction to online. And like I've run businesses on. I set up a business here in New Zealand, and when I came back from living in the UK, and did everything from home. And I think it's one of those things that, again, you know, I'm social by nature. It's intrinsically part of who I am. But I think one of the, and I love the whole idea. Personally, I prefer to be physically in contact with someone, because I think the vibe, the energy, being together is quite critical. But again, beyond that, you can still, I think what we're going to probably learn through this is we can still achieve that online as well. It's just a different way. We're having to, I guess, program ourselves, I guess, for how we are actually connecting. Because again, this by nature, primarily, this is not what we're used to, having a conversation on a device. Our primal instinct is not to do that. So, I mean, we're now having to transition into making that feel normal for now, and it may be going forward. I mean, I think there's, once we come out the other side of this, we will, it's quite interesting, the depth of relationships I believe we're going to have. I think this is going to deepen our relationships for two reasons. One, we have to, and excuse me for being philosophical, but we have to deepen a relationship with ourselves. And we, for the first time, have had to take a pause, take a breather, and actually truly reconnect with ourselves. And it is, and that's happening for I guess for many of us very quickly, in the sense of self-realization of, holy shit, where did that year go? Where did that week go? Where did that month go? And it's kind of like we've been living unconsciously for so long, in this, I'd call this locomotive state, and it's all around high energy, high impact, all this sort of dialogue that we've been, programmed to. And now it's like, whoa, stop the bus, brothers and sisters. We need to take a breather for so many different reasons. And so that, the positive thing I see with Corona is that by default, we've had to slow right down and in fact stop. And we're probably not enjoying that. And that is naturally totally understandable. And I think, I think with time, as we spend, a lot of things is going to come out, the goods, the bads, and the uglies, while we're in this lockdown. But I think, thinking back to, I kind of, you just touching on what you said earlier, Case, with about, I like to keep my glass full. I like to keep it full as I can. And in the sense that, and I don't have the Pollyanna approach, because it's like, man, when I have my shit days, I'm having them, and I literally feel them, and then I'll let them go. And I think it's that quick transition, I guess, acknowledging and then moving it out is, definitely is important, especially right now as we are going through these changes. But I really see, we're going to end up with some really positive outcomes with this at the end of it, because, if you even look at, for one, we are so fortunate to have a leader like Jacinda Ardern. What a machine she has been. She looks absolutely knackered. But, even last night, I don't know if anyone saw her. She jumped on live last night on her own accord. Yeah. She wasn't, that wasn't a, I don't think that was a mandate. She chose to get on and talk to the nation and say, hey, brothers and sisters, I know you're afraid, I know you're afraid, and I thank you. Yeah, true. But, I get it. And Mackenzie, it's like she's a messiah, and I think her authenticity of how she's keeping that transparency open. When I compare ourselves to the other nations, man, they're very, very challenging for them, because everything seems so ambiguous. Whereas with Jacinda, she had to make a very hard decision, and in effect, for the time being, potentially disrupt lives, businesses. That would not have been an easy decision to make by any means, and yet, but with conviction, she did it for the safety of the future of our country. And the hope is in 4 weeks' time. Well, I'm saying 4 weeks, high level. Oh, nice, Rach. Of course you do. But it's, I think over the coming weeks, I'll say, I think I'm really, I feel sort of really empowered by what I'm seeing around the community right now of New Zealand. And I was just driving into get my last lot of groceries yesterday, and I just had this sensation of, wow, you can actually see a lot of traffic had gone. People were starting to adapt to our new way of living. And I think for me, that sort of filled my heart a lot, because I went, again, we're going to get some people that are just going to be dickheads about this. And we hope that they are removed as quickly as possible. But for the majority, I think we've all, unanimously wanting this to move on fast. And so we can, get back to our normal ways. Well, will it be normal again? It'll be a new normal. Ways of living. And so I think, without Jacinda's leadership, I just think we're lucky, and I feel really, as a nation, I think we're incredibly privileged to have someone like her leading the country during this time of crisis. For a young wahine, she has definitely stepped up to the challenge. Absolutely, she's been the phoenix rising from the ashes, and she is having to make some very tough decisions, but for the greater good. So I feel enriched with having her. Yeah.
And to your point of even over the last few days where it's been level 3, most people haven't been out where if they can stay at home, they have been. And obviously, as of today, it's an enforced lockdown wherever possible. But even beforehand, people are doing their best not to be kind of out and about, because it's one of those things where we all individually do make a difference. And one person going to see their family or their friends, it might not seem like, it seems like a smaller thing, oh, it's just me just on the sideline, but all of this collectively makes a huge difference. And if we all kind of together stay home for these next 4 weeks and connect via this way, that's what will actually keep it to 4 weeks if possible, or at least as short a period of time as possible. So absolutely, I agree. I think her leadership's been amazing, and other people among the community as well. There's just been so much stuff out there from business support across the board of helping people connect in with the resources. It's, a crisis is obviously always an awful thing, but one positive that always seems to happen as well, though, is it can bring out the best in humanity. And it's always there, the best in humanity, but this can really kind of bring it out. So kudos and kapai to people within the community as well that have been connecting and keeping an eye on each other as well. There's a lot of people that I within my inner circle that are struggling with it, from the anxiety of what's happening and uncertainty, of loss, whether what the world looks like. So it is definitely challenging times, but I guess it's staying connected, and that, as you say, the new normal that's going to come forward. And I guess within that, I'm really curious to know, obviously, or maybe not necessarily obviously for people that don't know, but obviously to the people that do know, you've got so many amazing initiatives that you're proud of. Some of them, for example, so you've got Mana Rangatahi, so the mindset for youth entrepreneurship. You've got a whole lot of transitionship, and you've just been a pillar and a leader within the Dunedin community and abroad as well. What's that look like? Obviously, within these 4 weeks, I guess I'm really keen, and I'm sure the community is as well, from a perspective of how you're staying in touch or connecting with these amazing people that you've been helping, or programs and initiatives that you're part of, and what you see that looking like as we move forward with this changing landscape.
Yeah, no, thanks, Casey. And just for reference, we can't see you anymore. I can't see you anymore. So just in case you didn't know, I'm just looking at the Kiwi face. Hopefully you'll be able to come. But
before you go, Heidi, just on the side, can people comment if you can hear us okay and if you can see us okay? Audio is breaking up a little too.
Okay.
Mostly okay.
Mostly okay. Okay. Yeah, it'll be. Yeah, can see you both. Awesome.
Sometimes for one person they see something different to another. So if you are having issues, if you hit refresh, sometimes that can all good, but Casey breaks up a wee bit every so often. Okay.
Okay. That's cool. I can still technically hear you at the moment, so we can, if albeit I can definitely. Oh, there you go. You come back in. Yeah, you're right, Anna. This is where we see all the technology do it.
Absolutely.
But what was it? Sorry. So going back to it. Yeah. Look, It's interesting. I mean, I guess probably, just sort of touching on what we do as a business. So Steve and I mean, we've set up what we'll call, INN0V8HQ, which is, in the first instance, you'd look at it as real estate. But for us, I guess one thing that's been important for us to really, for me, it's beyond the real estate. INN0V8HQ has a depth beyond the real estate, because we will continue to evolve. And, we knew this was going to happen. And so some way, shape, not like this though, but, we knew with time, like with any succession plan, we would end up evolving. So I think the luxury that we kind of have in a space, and in a business like ours, is that we can morph this into a virtual community. All it is, it's just basically, it's the real estate itself is kind of like the metaphor for what we really are. It's all about the community, the tribe, all those connections. It's all about ironically, when I first set this up, it was all around human connections and human expressions. So ironically, connections and how we're expressing ourselves, whatever shape or form that took. And so I think with a lot of the initiatives, whether I've consciously thought about this or not, while we've been looking at every initiative, I guess I don't just look at it at one linear level. I never have. It's probably how my mind works. As I said, I've kind of got that racehorse mindset. But I think in the sense that when Steve and I are articulating anything that we do, we don't just look at it in one element. It's kind of like it must be available to morph. And so whether we knew it or not at the time, when we do any of these initiatives, they can be adapted on, they can be moved directly online. So if we're sort of talking about mana rangatahi, which is thanks to Start Up Dunedin and the contribution from Ministry of Youth Development, the ministry have tasked us to provide I guess an initiative for kids that fall out of the tertiary system. So they're in between leaving school and or have left school, and they weren't looking at tertiary as an option. Because there's so many out there like that. They're just, it's a gap that needs to be filled. So so I've actually built a program around, I guess it was kind of a correlation back to my life actually. The program itself is a direct reference to, back then life was a bit different. We didn't have mobile phones, didn't even have computers. Or we did, but they were dot matrix for those that will remember. I was typing on a typing thing, So I was a girl of 75, made in 75. So our whole transition has been, quite extreme. But it's the whole sort of thing that, ironically, I'm certain I don't stand alone here. We don't know where we fit at that age. When we're coming through, going into teenage years, puberty, hormones are off the rails. We don't know. We're just trying to find ourselves, and for kids today, for the rangatahi today, and for our tamariki, now most especially, it's really we don't know where we're going to go. So I think whether we knew this was despite knowing that this was ever going to happen, I think it couldn't be a better time to be able to work with these rangatahi. And although I haven't spoken about it with Rach and Start Up Dunedin yet, because I think what I wanted to do over these last few days is just let everyone breathe for a little bit, settle down. Like I think myself included, this is a time out period where it's just like, right, that was a huge big change in a matter of seconds. It felt like a matter of seconds. A lot of things that we've had to endure very quickly and adapt very quickly. And so I wanted to take a breather from the old life and actually just recalibrate, I guess, what, I guess Heidi and INN0V8HQ looks like in the, here and going forward. And so what I will be looking at doing is we will do mana rangatahi online for some of the rangatahi that we will be probably reaching out to. We may have some challenges there with connectivity. So again, we'll figure that out. But ideally, what I would love to sort of get to is that we're able to deliver this online. And again, we're reshaping. I've been thinking about it for ever since this sort of started happening, as soon as the change started happening, but I haven't wanted to make that public because I think I just needed, I just wanted to, I think the world needs a breather.
Mm.
Too much happening. There's a hell of a lot of content online right now.
Overload.
Really, it's just like, just park the bus for a minute. But, probably in the coming weeks, especially next week, once people sort of settled in a little bit and just had a chance to just get okay with where we're at, is, start rolling out mana rangatahi. And basically what does it all comes down to, nice, Rach. It's, what it comes down to is exactly what we're doing here right now. It's being available and knowing and sharing that we're here together and that we've all come from, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up either. And now, even at nearly 45 years of age, I'm like, holy shit, what does next month look like? It's ironic in the sense that, the world's in startup mode. The world is in startup mode now because it's like, whoa, didn't see that happening. And we weren't ready for it. And that's okay, because we weren't meant to be, because I think this is where the learnings kick in. And this is where suddenly it's kind of like, man, we're going through unprecedented times. We'll be able to share with our children and our grandchildren and our families going forward. It's that remember that time when we went through COVID-19 together. It changes, and it is changing our lives forever. But so I think, but for the positive, so I think for rangatahi today, it's probably the most important time that they need to probably feel connected more than ever before.
And I guess the point before as well is like, with the world forcing everyone to kind of slow down, and it puts everyone in a position where they're able to do this intrinsic thinking rather than just being on somewhat autopilot, because there's so much happening that they're just busy being busy, and sure, being productive as well, but busy being busy with life. Now a lot of us are having to stop, pause, breathe, think about what we're doing, where we want to be in life, and all the thinking that's going to be happening. I guess there's a deep correlation between that and these young people as well, right? We're now in a position where obviously school has also been closed, and we've got all these young people at home that, while many of them will be thinking, yes, I can be gaming for 4 weeks straight, it's also an opportunity for a lot of deep thinking about what they want to do as well. So I guess being able to kind of facilitate that as well, it creates space. Yeah.
It does. You're right, and it is all of this a space to actually rejig and figure out the whole. We don't know where this path is going to take us now, but I think collectively, what I'm excited for, which is part of who I am, is the fact is we're going to do this. We'll call it as a nation. We're doing this as a nation right now. We're in lockdown, and globally, all around the world, I'm watching celebrities doing their thing. We've got live DJ shows. We've got, I was just watching Keith Urban this morning with, Nicole Kidman. They're in their studio. He's on his banjo and she's dancing beside him. It's like, when would you have seen this? When would we have had this opportunity, or I'll call it the privilege, to go into these people's homes and remember that they're humans too? And so I think in the sense that going back to, we're going back to our human element. And we're seeing, I think what's kind of really interesting is I prefer good news versus bad news. And it's not to say that I dismiss bad news, but it's not good in the long term. It's kind of on a needs to know basis versus, completely consuming our headspace.
We have to keep our thoughts as much as possible on things that we can control, right? Because we've getting unstuck on things that we can't control, getting it down when there are things within our power that we can control. And as you say, it's not to say that you dismiss it. Obviously, we wouldn't encourage anyone to be ignorant of what's happening, but also not to be kind of consumed by it.
Yeah, I think for most of us, we now fully understand as much as we can that that's the state of the world. And I think now it's just a matter of hankering down, going back, just doing what we need to do for now for the goodness of our planet going forward. And I think on the other side, from my own, I guess, from the whenua side, it's that it's the fact that Mother Earth gets to have a breather, you know, because she's been hammered for so many years. And I think you only have to look at our obviously all the events that have occurred, you know, over the last, you know, years, you know, over the years where she's been hammered. So I guess our absence gives her a chance to breathe and reset and you know, so it is kind of, I'm grateful for the fact she gets a breather while we're just hibernating, you know, for now.
Most people have probably seen the satellite images from across the world of places that are going into lockdown of the air pollution that's significantly gone down. I've got friends in Delhi, and they're showing photos of the skies increasingly blue and a deeper blue than they used to be because of the lockdown, the decrease in, I guess, activities. And it does, I guess, pose the question of hitting this reset button of once we move forward as a world and we get through this, which we will, it creates the opportunity of a new way of doing things. And obviously there'll be some areas that have to transition back to the way they were because that's just what will happen. But there are definitely going to be opportunities where we can say, actually, rather than just going back into the same way of doing things, what if?
Yeah, I think you'll find that no one's going to be the same that they were. You know, we're noticing that now. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. You know, in the sense that, I mean, our office, we're technically closed, but we have the likes of Datacom in our office who look after network infrastructures for the entire world, and so our space is open to them during this period so that they can look after the world. And you know, and I think for them, you know, requests of you know, the volume of work that they've got coming in at the moment is off the charts. They've never seen it before. And so I think by default, life has changed, and I think it's a matter of us learning to become comfortable with the fact that there is change. I mean, there is, you know, since when did the whole world work from home?
Yeah, absolutely. I love your wanting to always have the glass half full or full and being that positive optimist side of things. One of the things that I've been seeing happening, which I'm sure everyone has as well, is all the virtual community meetups that are happening as well. And one of the really interesting things I'm loving about it is quite often meetups that are in person at events, while there's obviously a lot of important things for seeing someone face to face and connecting with them, and that's irreplaceable to a large degree, the connection you get. With that said, quite often it's limited it to whether you're in proximity to them, whether you're in Dunedin, whether you're in Auckland, Wellington, San Francisco, London, wherever. Whereas now you've got these virtual community meets that are happening where all of a sudden, because it's having to be virtual, you're having someone that's joining from the other side of the world, and you're connecting in with communities in a way that otherwise wouldn't have really been possible, or not. It wouldn't have been pragmatic, and it wouldn't have happened. So that's one thing that I'm seeing, that there's actually a huge opportunity for people. This is not just within your local ecosystem. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it totally is. And I mean, we've been working on, and you know, just off the back of that as well. I mean, you know, we were also setting up the first of its kind Indigenous Leadership and Entrepreneurship Conference at the end of May, which, you know, we have had to delay. But to be completely honest with you now, I'm thinking, you know, we can do this. We could look to do this online. So, and then people are at the moment, they're in the comfort of their own homes. It's not necessarily the same, but I mean, these are the considerations now that we have to consider for the foreseeable future, just for the sake of, you know, I think I mean, we've got to stop in a certain way, but I think we're stopping till we've got enough chance to, I guess, do that reset. And I guess redirect how we are going to do business, or be at business and do life, you know, going forward. So, yeah, it is. It's definitely interesting times. Can you still hear me, Casey? Because you've just dropped off.
I can hear you.
Cool. You've just gone offline again but that's all good. I can still hear you.
Okay, that's good. Again, with, I guess, everyone working from home, it creates these challenges, right? As the networks are definitely struggling. Cool. One of the things we quite often talk about, Heidi, is the importance of sales in the context of startups. And obviously, the world's had to kind of slow down. In ways, sales in the way they used to be possible are not possible right now. What are your thoughts around how startups should approach, I guess, the new dynamics of this? I guess off the bat, one thought process is it's even touching base and connecting in with your customers or people within the network, and actually just making sure that they're okay and they've got things that they need, and being human, right? Yeah. What are your thoughts on what that looks like? Because I guess there's one of the struggles talking with different founders that is definitely out there is like they're already in survival mode, right? Already kind of like desperately trying to get sales or to scale up and move towards being more sustainable. Do you have any thoughts around what that looks like, or I guess how that will probably evolve? I suppose another piece could be sales is going to move a lot more online as well.
Oh, look, I think I'm going to go back to probably what I've always said pre-COVID-19. Sales is relationships. Like when I look at sort of anything, I mean, I've been working in sales. It's one of my specialist areas. But I'm one of those people that when it comes to, we'll call it, again, it's the term of selling and sales. It's all around relationships. Who do you trust? And I think the biggest thing what we don't want to be doing right now is exploiting this survival mode. Exploiting the survival mode that we're in with, oh, look, it's the perfect time because everyone's at home and we're going to hammer them with sort of stuff. And I've seen some of this activity sort of happening. I think, this whole, with this massive change that we're going through right now, I think we will, the way in which we're conducting a sales process, for the sake of a traditional term, is going to be different, because we're going to be dealing with a community now that will be, again, we're in a time of absolute, most crisis. We've never seen it before. We've never behaved this way before. And so it's that whole thing where, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, it's the pain points that people buy on, right? That's kind of typical. It's kind of like, what's the pain? What are we trying to fix here? Mm-hmm. And I think whatever we do right now, it has to come from, and I mean, look, I've never changed in this position ever. So this isn't just a COVID-19 conversation. This is how I work. When it comes to sort of anything, for me, sales is relationships, and I prefer that relationship integrity more so than anything else, because and especially now in times of major disruption, they're only going to exchange or invest in someone that they trust and is coming at it from an authentic place. And I think the other thing is it's this transparency that's got to be, no more superficial stuff anymore. I think we have to be transparent as a nation. And I think, not as a nation, we have to be transparent globally. And so I think in the sense that, the old way of doing stuff, and I still see a hell of a lot of what I would call the old sales rituals that are almost like 80s style stuff, that it's, if you do this and you'll, and you'll be abundant and you'll have, shit. And it is short-term gain for, to I guess relieve the pain. But I mean, I think for now, I can only think, and again, this is my own opinion, it's just looking at having a chance, and again, this will continue to evolve over the weeks to come. I think we need a time right now to just to have a break from, have a break, so that we've got this ability to do this reset and to figure out what it is that we want. And for our businesses, again, if we use INN0V8HQ as a prime example, we're still going. But we're having a long lunch break for now. So because we need to feed ourselves on all of this new diet, this new lifestyle diet that we're trying to, absorb and get familiar with. And Steve and I had a massive kōrero last night about everything, because we've got, obviously, for all of the businesses, and we are not independent to any of these. For every business right now, there's a lot of conversations around, what next. And what Steve and I have done is we've gone, no, we're going to have a lunch period for a little bit, and allow time to just rejuvenate. And so we kind of know, in the sense that, because at the end of the day, we're ready, like our business has already by default ready to be morphed into online. Again, I much prefer being in my space, because I love being, that's kind of like, my sacred place is being down at 123 Vogel. But beyond that now, I think it's that ability to create that same environment in a space like this where, it's this gives us ability to even be connected to people we didn't even realise. And so I think with this at the moment, it's just taking a breather, allowing everyone to have this breather, respecting that for now, and then going forward, we'll figure our way through it, because again, things are, I guess just statistically, things are going to look a little bit uglier than they are going to look nicer, as there's obviously, with the infection arises, the spread rises. But with time, it's like everything, it'll go up and then it'll come down again. It's just how quickly that'll come down that'll determine, obviously, people's next moves. But going back to the same phrase that's been, that's going around, it's don't panic right now. The government, in most cases, in every way, are being able to support people during this period, in whatever shape or form they can. And I think, again, I go back to the way that they've delivered this, their conviction on giving this to us, giving us simple, clear, and very convicted. This is it. We just got to get the job done. These are the perimeters that we'll live in for now. I was reading an article last night, people need those guidelines in a time of crisis, because otherwise, if you give them too much to think about, too many options, it's just, it gets too hard and difficult. So,
Absolutely. I really resonate with that. And to your point as well of absolutely, first and foremost, take a breather. And then when you have caught your breath and you have kind of started to evaluate what things look like, is actually calibrate to what the world's going through right now, and focus on how you can genuinely add value and authentically add value, not just trying to, as you say, exploit, because obviously there are going to be opportunities for that to happen, and that's totally not the way to go about this, but actually figuring out how you can add value. And there's different ways of doing that. There's some cool new changes I've seen in a couple of different startups or different business models. I saw Lisa King post, I think it was last night, maybe this morning, on normally like the eat my lunch model, right? Of kind of buy one and then a box is given to some kids at a school. Whereas at the moment, what they've done is they've got like a care box where it's got a week's worth of kind of like necessity groceries and this sort of thing, and you can have that gifted to some whānau, and then for every one of that is home that they can have lunches as well. And I think it's quite neat, because it's kind of like it's genuinely adapting to challenges people are going through and adding values, but they've just had to recalibrate what their model looks like. And another way, Education Perfect in Dunedin, how they're opening up their online learning platform to schools across the world until the 1st of May for free, whereas normally it's a pay-to-play sort of model. And it's these sort of things like that where it's actually just having some humanity and saying, yeah, put sales of revenue aside and actually figure out how we can add value and help people. And let's be real, in the future, that will probably translate into customers down the track for them. So there'll be fruit that comes from that, but from approaching it in a human way and adding value today and helping people sort of approach.
Yeah, and I touching on this is what I'm excited for, because I think what we're going to start seeing now is a humanitarian approach to how we are doing business, and for me that's how I operate. And it's probably seemed, crazy in what I'd call the traditional business world, because it's kind of like in my own head I've been challenged for years around not sticking to what I would call the traditional business template, because for me it's not who I am. And I think we separate the business from who we are individually as founders, it's like not a good move, because in times like this is when the strength of the, I guess, the business kicks in, and it's like you've got to have it's that thing, is it's going back to the essence of why you do what you do. You know, whether or not whatever business you're going to get into, what's the intention of it? Yeah. How much meaning does it have to you? Like, what are you wanting to achieve? And from my perspective, the hope and the faith is that with what we're seeing at the moment, you know, monumental changes, we're going to get back to our source. You know, we're going to get back to the things that we really that are really important to us. So, you know, businesses will move towards that. We call it, you know, AFI, or the TOTOC, or the, you know, that how I've got your back. And this isn't about a high growth business. Like, for me, you know, like, it's that whole thing. It's around it's a high well-being business, and the ability for us as leaders, as business leaders, founders, and our people, and our leadership teams, and all of our other communities, we can support them with integrity the whole way. You know, that integrity of what we're doing, and it's not just getting the next sale and increasing the bottom line and all that sort of stuff, which is what, we'll call it the old way of doing stuff, is we've been driven by that. And for me, that's kind of consumed a lot of, it's kind of made us very unconscious. You know, it's kind of like, yeah, just keep doing it because old mate down the road's doing the same thing. I've never resonated with that ever. You know, so this isn't something that's suddenly just been a moment now with COVID-19 and I guess the awakening with COVID-19. It's how I've always kind of, you know, done stuff. And so, I mean, I think by nature we can, when the going gets tough, it can suddenly be, oh my God, how are we going to pay our next bills, and how are we going to feed ourselves, and so on and so forth. The reality is right now that's been stripped. For most of the community, that's been stripped right out. I mean, there will be businesses right now that, you know, which is really exciting, I guess, in many ways. But I mean, you know, we've got to send major appreciation out to our health services. You know, these guys are keeping us safe and alive, and they're going in every day, confronted by what, you know, this with COVID-19, and all the people that are being able to contribute to, you know, our longevity, you know, for the, you know.
100%. I was talking to my dad this morning, who's a paramedic up in Taranaki, and even with him, he's even self-isolating within his bubble, because every shift around that he's coming through now, obviously he's heightened exposure to this.
Yeah,
would bring that home to the family there. So it's actually in some ways also increasingly isolating and lonely for people that are on the forefront, because it's not just that they're going to be out there with the stresses and being genuinely heroes being out there at the moment, but there's also impacts when they do come home too. So it's absolutely, hat goes off to everyone that's essential services, from supermarkets through to gas stations, hospitals, the police. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and I think.
Hey, I'm just absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you go, Heidi.
No, you're good. You okay?
I was saying, Olivia, absolutely agree with Nano Girl's pivot as well, with moving online too. There's so many ways, and I guess that's what we could encourage everyone to do is figure out once you catch that breather, calibrate how you can add value authentically through a human-to-human kind of perspective, how you can add value, and where you can change your model to do that, and get creative. Look at what other people are doing, not necessarily just within your industry as well. Quite often, other businesses in different industries could have a unique approach that could work for you, whereas within your industry, things might not necessarily be exactly what you want. So look broader and connect and take advantage of opportunities of connecting with people that, with these virtual meetups across the board, you'll see them all through LinkedIn and probably Facebook or whatever social media platforms you're on, and just calibrate to the times. I'm just conscious we're approaching an hour.
Yep.
If anyone has any questions on challenges that you're going through that you'd like us to touch on, just throw them through in the questions piece. But I guess as we look to close this off, Heidi, what do you see for the future of your next steps and for New Zealand, what that looks like. I know that's a very broad sort of kind of question, but I'd love your take on it.
Oh, honestly, I'm going to look at this holistically. I can only but hope, and I feel assured, to be fair, that this brings us a newfound peace and harmony for the planet, beyond anything else, and for ourselves. And I think there can only be good that will come from this. We're going to see the best and the worst in people during this period of time. And it's the best stuff. I think it's what I'm seeing now. Our ability to want to connect. Like, we've got time now to connect again with our relationships. And so because again we've been so busy. We've been in a Ferrari mode for years. And one thing I'm really appreciative at the moment, it's just kind of like friends and relationships that I've had over the years, I've actually now got time to give to them. So we've now got a gift of time. And so and how we reposition ourselves, it's just how we reposition ourselves now and collectively. And I think what I totally invite and encourage is thanks, Olivia. What I invite and I encourage now is that, we do this as a team. We have a wonderful and I use the word tribe, being tribal clan, being the Māori Scottish wahine, but that ability where we're going to do this together. We while we're going through a little bit of self-isolation, it's just going to give us a chance to, I guess, reconnect with ourselves, and then we can add even more value out to our collective. And again, what I think is amazing is the fact that just being able to work with colleagues, and again, I know this phrase gets plagiarized, but we are in this together. He waka eke noa, which is, we're in this boat together. We're in this waka together right now. And we've got to paddle until further notice. Until further notice, we've got to paddle the best that we can, but with the intentions that it's all for love and peace and harmony. And I know that sounds like a harakisha moment, but it's I think the essence of what we're going through right now is the fact is that this is when our bond gets stronger. I think it's only going to get stronger. And I think for beyond that, for Steve and I and INN0V8HQ, look, whatever's going to be is going to be. I think the biggest thing is that we're very passionate about what we do, and we're going to be we're here until further notice. And we'll continue to we want to contribute as much as we can, especially during this time of uncertainty, because hey, we are not untouched. We're exactly the same boat. We're only human. This feels weird, but we'll be okay with time and knowing that we can all feel weird together. We can share our weird sensibility. But yeah, we'll be doing. Thank you, Nathan. And whatever we can do, we're committed to helping everybody get through this, and share the goods, the bads, and the uglies. For lack of a better phrase, sort of close off. I'm a life coach. I'm an internationally accredited life coach in my past life, past a few years ago, and we used to with my So with my and during our sessions, we called them BMWs, which is bitch, moan, and whine. Now you can put the wine can be a wine or a wine, whichever way you want to make it. But it's a BMW, which is a bitch, moan, and whine session, which you get 5 minutes just to go and just let it all out, because you got to vent. You got to have something where you can, get all your shit and your troubles and stuff out for the day, and then move on. So it's those types of things that, if there's sort of anything that I could sort of lend to probably how we're dealing with stuff at the moment, it's just have a BMW every now and then. Do it, let that shit out. If you've got a boxing bag, or I used to play a lot of tennis, so that tennis ball used to get hammered like nobody's business. And then I've just recently got into taiko drumming, the Japanese drumming.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's mint. That's mint. Just saying. Okay. And you can pound that thing as hard as you like. It's all rhythmic and kind of martial arty, But man, that's awesome. And now I'm going to actually get on to learning how to play get on to playing this guitar and getting more lessons while I've got this time out as well.
I guess that space that's created, right, is we can now not only focus on where we want to do with what we want to do with our lives and reconnect with people, but it's also time to actually invest into ourselves, whether that's reading, whether that's taking up an instrument, music, exercise as well, actually. Like, I mean, listening to Jacinda's live stream last night, that walking around the place is okay as long as you're keeping 2 meters distance, including things like the beach. As much as possible, walking to places, not driving if possible. But that's also a great opportunity for us to actually say, let's create some good habits in our lives, if we don't really have them, of doing things that build us up as people.
Yeah, definitely. And no, so look, I guess on conclusion, first and foremost, Casey, and for the Kiwi Learning Pad, thank you for this opportunity to korero. As I said, this all happened a long time when we were in normality.
Yep.
So it just, everything happens for a reason, right? So it just so happens to,
lockdown.
the first day of lockdown. So kia kaha to everybody. And I guess beyond that, reach out to me by any means through Heidi Renata on all the social media feeds, INN0V8HQ, and just on that, just to conclude as well, one of the things we're doing next week which is really cool. Steve's actually we're going to be doing a webinar next Thursday at 10 o'clock, I think it is. It's the 10. Yeah, next Thursday at 10 o'clock next week. Free webinar session on working from home, because, as you know, Steve has run multiple businesses all around the world, and he knows remote working extremely well. So he's going to do a half-hour session webinar on the ability of a remote leader, and how you can sort of do stuff. So just keep an eye on the INN0V8HQ LinkedIn and Facebook pages, and by all means jump on. But by any means, regardless of that, please feel free to reach out. I'm always keen for a virtual coffee, or if you even want to have like a virtual wine session.
I've just put your LinkedIn into the chat, Heidi. So if anyone's keen on that, connect with Heidi, and I'm sure you'll be sharing it on LinkedIn as well. And I'll share that too. So that's awesome, and I'm super keen to hear what Steve has to say on working from home. It's absolutely like one of the most fundamental things that's happening right now as people move forward. So important topic. Thanks, guys.
Pajamas now, yeah.
It's really funny. You see,
get fun with everyone with what they're wearing right now. It's just like, I've been running around and like, thanks, Emily. This is, it's so funny. Like, this is what I wouldn't normally wear around the house. It's just kind of like I've been like totally living in just my home stuff. But I was like, man, today, this again, just thinking about pumping up your wider or your spirit, it's just nice to put on something just sort of a bit more sort of a bit more sort of playful, I guess.
It does make a difference, the way you dress in regards to your confidence and even the energy that you have if you kind of take a little bit of time. One thing I did, adds a point I was going for that's quite funny. You'll see people doing like video chats at the moment, and they'll have like a shirt on or whatnot, and they might have to stand up to go do something, and then the T-base in the bottom half, which is quite funny. But these are all the advantages of working from home, right? Is if you're comfy, you can actually get more done too. But it's also that balance between also looking after your well-being too. Hey, thank you so much for coming on. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It's been very valuable for me, and I feel it's probably will have been very valuable to the community as well. For anyone that wants to connect with Heidi, her LinkedIn link is in the chat just there. So for the webinar that's coming up, and if you want to touch base with her as well. Heidi, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that's joined for today as well. Keep your spirits up. Stay at home, but connect with people wherever you can, and we'll move through this. As you say, Heidi, we are all in this together. We're on the same rocker, and it's going to create a new future for us in a way that I think there'll be many positives that come out on the other side of things. But for now, take care.
Absolutely. Keep your tanks full, people. Yeah. And probably during this time is make sure that you feed yourself with as much good news and good company as you can. whichever channel that you're using is, make sure that you've got goodness surrounding you as frequently as you can. So amen to you too, Nathan. But look forward to catching up with you guys in the future. Aroha nui, lots of love from myself and obviously on behalf of Steve as well, to all around the world. And may we come out of this as quickly as possible. And for those that have lost their lives during this as well, we have massive condolences to whānau and friends that have had that as well. That have endured that as well. It's not cool, and for those that have lost their jobs, we'll be your biggest advocates right during this period. It is a very unprecedented time, and again we'll offer you the whole way. We got your back, peeps.
Absolutely, and this together. Right, take care.
Take care. Ka kite.